Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today obviously new pack means new deck, and I actually came up with two variants of the deck that you can play. One of them is the more basic combo oriented variant that kind of tries to go first but can technically also go second, although it's not that great because you'd need loads of hand traps, and since this is a budget deck channel, we will not be running any of those. So let's start off first. We run one Girochin Kuwagata because this card is a wind monster, so it works well against Barrier Statue, and since Flanderies have been introduced into this meta, this can be quite nice actually. So this is the reason why we do this. Plus we can special summon it out with Gokipole, for example, so this card can come in very, very handy. We run a whole Battlewasp package basically to make up for that. We don't run many hand traps. We kind of need to run some extenders because otherwise your opponent's hand traps are very, very, very annoying. So we run a pin at the Bullseye, which can special summon itself, and also you get a head start in 200 life points, which matters. Next up, triple Battlewasp Sting the Poison. This card is, you don't have to run it at 3, but against a lot of decks this card can actually be quite nice by literally normal summoning it, and then you can add one Battlewasp monster, and then you can even use this effect of the card because it is a quick effect. If you tribute one other monster, insect monster, you can have an infinite impermanence basically, well, besides the whole in this column stuff is negated, but that can be very, very good. It can be very good if you get disrupted as well, because you have lots of extenders in your hand that you can still special summon, so you still have like one negate even if your opponent like shuts down your place completely. So this card isn't actually terrible in a more controlled based style that this deck has in general, because you can see in the extra deck we already have a bit of a problem with the rarities of the cards. Gokipole, a nice card to send to the graveyard by stuff like Resonance Insect. So this is, I would say 2 off because you can normal summon it and then link it away. Technically you can also just normal summon it and link it into Almirage, a card that you don't have to run. If you want to save on URs, then this is the card to cut, because this card does do something for the deck with stuff like Resonance Insect and Gokipole, but it's not amazing. So technically if you want to save some money, then this card is where to save. We run a triple Twinbow also because this card special summon itself, but you have to keep in mind this card actually locks you into insect monsters from the extra deck, so be aware of this. Some things that you can do won't work anymore after you summon this card. Beetrooper Scout Buggy, mainly you want to kind of use it out of the deck, special summoning it by the giant Beetrooper, but obviously also works normal summoning it. What you also could be doing, you could be run Monster Reborn, because in this deck we kind of have a lot of problems with the recurrence, so technically one Monster Reborn wouldn't actually be terrible in this deck because lots of the cards trigger by special effects, special summon, and also you can get stuff like your one Sting Lancer back, you can get stuff like your Link 4 back, which you don't really have other ways of doing so technically one Monster Reborn wouldn't be too bad. We run triple Beetrooper Scale Bomber. This card is quite nice, especially in a control based variant. This card isn't too bad either. It's an extender, so yeah, it's a good Beetrooper monster. Why not run it at 3? We run double Aztekipede because this card is first of all searchable by stuff like Gokipole, and also this card I don't think it has like a limitation on how many times it can be summoned per turn, so it's actually somewhat neat to run in this deck because you can summon it multiple times, and you could cut one out and replace one with Doomdozer, because Doomdozer is a lot better usually because this card is easier searchable, and technically if you get it back or if you have multiple, you could summon it multiple times. It's special summoned by hand, so if you have a way of adding it back to your hand or getting it back, because you can shuffle it with Picofelina back to the deck, then search again with Resonance Insect, because Resonance Insect isn't once per turn, and so on. There's like lots of stuff you can do, and this card is genuinely very, very good. We have triple Resonance Insect. This is what all the buzz is about. This card is not once per turn, both of their effects. The dumping stuff to the graveyard isn't that good, but it fuels stuff like Doomdozer if you run it, or the other Banish insects, plus it adds stuff to your hand like your Sting Lancer, it adds your Kaiju to your hand, and also adds Scary Moth to your hand, which I'll be covering in a second. We run 3 Retaliating C. It's a hand trap that is cheap and works in the specific meta quite alright. It feels sometimes a bit iffy, it can be a bit bricky in your hand, but it also at least does certain stuff, so I decided to run it at 3. In theory it would search max C as well, which can be super nice if you have it, but obviously this deck doesn't play this one, so yeah, it's fine. It's not great, but it's okay. And one Arbalest. This card is good in the grind game. It can get stuff back from your graveyard. The problem with the grind game with this deck is you see in the extra deck we don't run like multiples of the Beetroopers, and that can be problematic because there is no grind game. So technically you could cut this card if you want, but also you can sometimes even crash it into your opponent's monster, then special summon one Battlewasp monster from your deck. That can be nice as well. 2 Beetrooper Assault Roller, you would get away with 1 if you have like other cards that you definitely want to fit into this deck, so you could cut one of these if you want. It's just another extender if you have cards in your graveyard, which you a lot of the time will have, but sometimes yeah, problematic. Scary Moth is a card that well, keeps your opponent from special summoning, which is very, very strong. I mean, it keeps yourself as well, but the point is summon it during your opponent's turn, either with Papillion or actually normal summon it over one of your Armor Horn, which you could do. So that is quite a neat thing, because Armor Horn does not specify like a level 4 lower monster. You can just have another normal summon. If you search this card beforehand, you can technically, if that is all of your plays, just summon a Scary Moth over it and hope your opponent doesn't get over 1,800 attack points when running well, one special summon and one normal summon, which most of the time they will, but in theory it could be worth a try. Beetrooper Sting Lancer is a card that you kind of want to be running at 2 because well, it's very, very good. It's very, very good in the grind game as well. If your opponent gets rid of it, it cannot special summon itself from the graveyard, so it's nicer if you're able to get stuff back to your hand, and that is why this card would be better at 2, but since it's a budget deck profile, 1 is fine to play the deck at least. 1 Kaiju because it's searchable, 1 Beetrooper Descent because it's searchable, and tokens are quite fun and help you extend your plays, and technically you could be popping some spell traps on the field, which comes up sometimes. 1 Field Spell because another way to extend your plays basically, but only if you have Beetroopers, and since we don't run that many in the in the main deck, we did not want to max out in this card because there might be chances where you don't have any Beetroopers in the graveyard. The good thing is it doesn't special summon in defense position, so you can actually get one of your big monsters back. The problem is you have to search it beforehand, and if you hard draw it, it can be useless. So and 1 is fine because Sting Lancer searches it. You could bump it up if you feel like you need it to recycle your link monsters actually. Forbidden Chalice, a card that's good going first, going second. This is where hand traps would fit in, for example, as well for Lair Wire. This card I felt like was quite fun, especially because you can trigger Resonance Insect during opponent's turn, which is not too bad. And it's kind of like a Dogmatica punishment in that sense, but it doesn't lock you out from the extra deck, but also doesn't give you 2 pops. So, you know, it's not too bad if you go in first, but obviously also a slot for hand traps. And double Beetrooper Fly Sting, yes, you can technically get away with running 1, but I feel like since you will end up on the link monsters of Beetroopers anyway, having a monster negate that technically comes back is actually quite nice. And yes, fair enough, 3 would be too much because you don't want to see it at 2 in your hand, but being able to actually draw into it and search one of the other Beetrooper cards is nice, so keep that in mind, but obviously you can cut it down to 1 if you feel like it. For the extra deck, we just run general like insect good stuff that isn't expensive, which is this, and technically you could go into Cloud Castle, but you have no payoff for it besides the fact that level 8 or lower monsters cannot attack the turn they're normal special summon, which isn't great either, but it's a play in combination with Azusa and a level 4 monster, I guess. Obviously this is the space where you would be running 2 of the Giant Beetrooper, 2 of Piccofelina, 2 of Armor Horn. This is, yeah, you would be replacing these kind of things first. Cicada King, a card that you can get out of legacy packs, is one of the good cards that you can get, so if you have it, I would definitely run it. If you don't have it, I think this is one of the essential cards because this is basically the only rank 3 insect that you can do, and basically the only rank 3 play that's actually worth something. So I feel like this card is kind of a must play, at least in my opinion, especially in this variant. Other variants where you are more link focused, it doesn't have to be, but here I think this card is very important. One level 4 one rank 4 insect monster, obviously, so we can use that one as well. Link Spider because you can you have the tokens and then technically summon out your Kuwagata from your hand, which can be well helpful. but usually like this doesn't really matter that much, but you get it for free, so why not include it. Almirage is nice because you can send lots of cards to the graveyard that you want in the graveyard, either to banish them with one of your extenders or to actually get the effects off. So I feel that this card does a very, very, very important job. You don't need it because you have so many extenders that mostly you will be fine by normal summoning the card and then going into Link 4 because you have an extender. But if you don't, then this card at least starts something. So I feel like it's okay if you run it, but you don't have to. This card, very important, resets your insect stuff and also draws you cards, gets stuff out of the graveyard, is a discard, which can be very important as well. So this card at least at 1 would possibly run at 2. This is just in here because it's 2 monsters, different names, and you get back onto the insect train basically. If you go into stuff like Link Spider and Almirage, you can salvage that and go back into an insect monster, and then you can continue there to only summon insect monsters. If you locked yourself by any means, 1 Armor Horn, technically you want to run 2, but this card is very good, extends to infinity and beyond, and can easily trigger your Resonance Insect, so this card is definitely a must play. Deco Talker, because I get it for free, and it's an okay Link 3, obviously run better cards if you have them, same for Astraliger. Appaloosa comes to mind. You can obviously run stuff on Nightmare Phoenix, even a Halka Fibrax stuff with the Battlewasp works if you wanted to, so there's lots of stuff you can run if you have the cards for it. 1 Papillion, mega important for stuff like Scary Moth, because this is one big play that you can make. Other than that, it can be nice, it can help you get your Scale Bomber back, technically can help you to get your Sting the Poison back. It's okay, it doesn't really do overly all that much, but it's definitely a nice extender from time to time. But be aware, you cannot use both of the effects per turn, which means you will always use this effect and then can only use this during your opponent's turn, so don't think this is an actual extender for your first play. I made that mistake in my first game because I didn't read the card, but now I know. And we run 1 giant Beetrooper, Invincible Atlas, because this card is, yeah, it's very strong. It extends your plays, it keeps your body on board. That's very hard to get rid of, actually. Can help you reset your counter trap as well. So this card at 1 is fine, but you would want to run it at 2, I feel like. And for other cards you can run, obviously hand traps, Doom Loser, Battlewasp, the level 8 synchro is not terrible. You can run any kind of rank force if you like, but most of the time you'll be somewhat locked. Appaloosa is quite good. Technically you can go and play some kind of build that focuses a lot on the tokens, in combination with Supernatural Danger Zone, for example. You can play like Bug Emergency if you like. You can play Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi because you will have lots of normal monsters then, especially if you combine it with stuff like Ballpark, for example. That can be nice, and Beetrooper Squad, which can be nice, you can summon more tokens as well. So there's lots of stuff to do with this specific variant. And now for the second variant, you see extra deck and everything is the same, but we cut some of the cards, some of the good stuff, things, some of the extenders for a Ballpark variant, because that works quite well. Sometimes even going first, because your opponent still has to get rid of Ballpark. You can actually summon cards back from the graveyard if they destroy one of your monsters, especially if you have like a normal monster in graveyard, which a lot of the time you might because of Gokipole. You can easily send cards to the graveyard like Resonance Insect, which starts your plays a bit, which isn't bad either. So if you want to play around with like the whole insect Ballpark kind of stuff, then this card is quite nice. You have to like tweak the deck a little bit. It becomes kind of going second-ish more, so you probably wanted to run hand traps then, because that makes especially Ballpark decks a lot more viable. But this is how it kind of would look like if you're trying to build it on a budget. You cut stuff like back to 1 Beetrooper Assault Roller and stuff, and you will be fine with it. Hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, blah blah blah, but most importantly, have a good day.